Welcome to Epic Conversation number 4. I'm Heather, and I'm here today with my fellow coach, Andres. Welcome, Andres.
How's it going, Heather?
Good. Andres and I are also, just like the other 3 people I've been interviewing, we're in a creator circle together, a coaching program. So we've had lots of experience talking about all the things, haven't we?
Oh yeah, it's crazy that it's almost coming up to a year of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you can get to know people pretty well, right? When you
Yeah,
talk every week for a
a lot
year.
of inside jokes.
Lots of inside jokes. It's been so fun. And so I'm excited to spend this time with you today, uh, talking about coaching and talking about inner work and diving into how that shows up in your life. So first, do you just want to tell us a bit about you, what you do, who you are, where you're from?
Yeah, no, I'm Andres. I I coach dads on, creating the relationship that they want with their kids and just getting past any obstacles there. So you've been there for the creation of that. You and I have spoken a few times about that, which was in total service of that mission. And yeah, that's what I do. I got married. A fun fact, I got married, I got a new apartment, and I moved all within 2 weeks in July.
And moved really far. Where were you before Boston?
Yeah, Boston, moved to Boston from New Jersey. It's about
Okay,
four
so
hours
not
away.
too far, but
Yeah.
yeah. No, well, congrats. I mean, this you're still in your honeymoon year, right?
Yeah. Hopefully the
Yeah.
whole thing is a honeymoon.
Just keep it a honeymoon just forever. That's
Exactly.
my plan, that's for sure. Um, so what I'm asking everyone, like I have just interest in all the coaches that I know. I'm interested in how your personal development, like your journey into personal development work started. Like what got you interested in it? What were you learning about it first? That kind of thing.
Yeah, so I vividly remember um being in Colombia at around I was eight, I think I was 18 years old. Yeah, I was 18 years old by then.
Hmm.
And I knew I wanted a change in my life.
Hmm.
Like there's just I was just not happy like at all during my high school years. I wanted to
Hmm.
change and I wanted to move past like a lot of the doubts and the limiting beliefs that I have. And this is me talking about it now. Back then, I
Yeah.
had no idea what I was. I
Yeah.
couldn't eloquate. I just knew I wanted something different. And a big shape of that took in the form of like working out and stuff.
Hmm.
So I got into that. I started following a bunch of guys who were just relatively, I guess, big names at that time, and I was following them, and a lot of what they were doing, also like the personal development side, just came with it.
Hmm.
That's where I got introduced to Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, Tony Robbins,
Yeah.
Carol Dweck,
Hmm.
just a bunch of different people, and I got into again. I further down the rabbit hole, a few years into that. Um, like I was taking care of my health. I joined a business mastermind probably maybe a year and a half into it, like a year
Hmm.
and a half after that. Because I was like my mom had gotten fired, so this was 2009 ish. No,
Uh-huh.
between 2009 and 2010, my mom got fired, so that was right after the recession. So her
Mm-hmm.
finding work was tough, and I was like, I knew that's not what I wanted to be doing. Like I didn't want to be in that position,
Yeah.
so I was looking for just business stuff, and I joined this business group, and that's where more of the personal development stuff just got introduced to me. um, it's funny. This week I was reviewing like all the tests that I've done. So since 2013, I've done the 6 human needs test, the Myers Briggs, the Colby. Um, what else? There's a values one that I did. I don't even know what it's called. The 5 love languages. I just did the Enneagram. I did 2 different Enneagrams this
Uh-huh.
week. How you fascinate. So I was like, oh wow, it's just cool to see this stuff. And the personal development side, like I was looking at that stuff and just I noticed that like some of the things were like why am I reading this but it's not clicking, or maybe like how am I not attributing? And I think there's just a strong belief that I just probably didn't deserve it,
Uh-huh.
or that I couldn't do it. And then I came to Christ maybe four years ago,
Hmm.
and that really just like my connection with God really connected. It was the missing piece for me about like, oh man, like this is how you're seen, this is how you who you are, truly. And it was just like
Mhm.
that. That to me was the missing piece that really fit everything else together. I was like, oh wow, I spent 10 years learning this stuff. I haven't felt like I've been growing.
Yeah.
Um, I and then now this like core thing with God, and it's like, oh, all of this makes sense, and it's like, okay, now I'm moving in all these avenues. So you and I have met at kind of the fastest pace of growth that I've ever experienced. So like when we first met, April 2021, completely different person than you're talking to right now. And
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
guessing you could probably pick up on that.
Yeah.
And that's been my journey so far.
Well, that's the point, right? And I feel the same way since I mean, we both hired a coach at the same time, right? We're in the same program, and I have just dove head first into how do I work? What's going on here? What do I want? Right? And how am I in the way of having that? And I love how you identified that spirituality was kind of like the missing link, right, between personal development, like
Mm-hmm.
who you are and who you thought you were, right? And I find that absolutely like spirituality and personal development go hand in hand. And I find that it without that spiritual piece, right? It's like we haven't clicked into a bigger picture. And I don't care what kind of spirituality, right? People follow. Um, but yeah, I've had the same experience for me and for clients, right? Who to even just develop some language, right, around
Mm-hmm.
around who you are, in the bigger picture is like groundbreaking, right? It can just be a start to a whole new journey of who you see yourself as. Um,
Mm-hmm.
how did you get into coaching? Like, what inspired you to hire a coach? Is JP your first coach?
No, so my first coach was again back when I was 19.
Oh,
And so the man of Paul Reddick, he's like, you know, he's like a father figure to me. And with him, you know, there's a lot of development there. Just like first, like just having that. I never had I never did sports or anything growing up,
mhm.
and so for me, it was just a great dynamic with him, and then just learning more, and then just going out on my own. And I hired. So this was probably 6 or 7 years ago.
Mhm.
So Paul, again, he's a coach. Not so much like a life coach or anything like that. It was more like hey, you got a business, I'll help you make it happen.
Uh-huh.
But the cool thing, what he did is like, if your personal stuff isn't taken care of, the professional will never happen. So
Yeah.
we're going to take care of what's going on personally, as
Yeah.
well as the business stuff. So you come to me, whichever problem you have, we're going to focus on that. So
Yeah.
like that, it was probably, I don't know, 6 years of just being in that. And it really helped. And it was just like, it was, there was some time in that in that time period where I was speaking to the guy that I was working for who was doing this, and he was like, I was like, I want to do what you do. I
Uh-huh.
want to coach.
Yeah.
And they're like, all right, but we don't know how to do that. Like we don't know how to teach that. Like this is just something that we do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to me, it was like that's where I just felt so deflated and defeated. I was like, this is the
Um,
one thing I want to do.
uh-huh.
And you mean like in my head, I was like, I interpreted it as like, all right, I got to have a successful business. I got to do this, this, and that just to be able to help people in the way that I want to help them.
Yeah.
Kind of like saying like, yeah, like you've like, oh, you have to be a business before you have to be a successful business person before you can be an astronaut. I was like, no, I just want to be an astronaut.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, that was 2016, 17. It was really
Mhm.
like a downturn for me, just like
Mm.
feeling that, just kind of like almost kind of like pseudo accepting that, like, all right, I can't do this. And I just went like, all right, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And just kept flip flopping. And then 2019, I
Mhm.
hired a Tony Robbins coach because I was like, all right, I want to be a comic book writer. I want to hire a coach to help
Yeah.
me with that. And then that goal lasted for like 2 weeks. And
Mhm.
then but like I continued to work with her, and she helped me with like the personal stuff that I was going through,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
relationship stuff, the spiritual stuff. And then my wife, she was my friend at the time, and she was like, "Why don't you do something with your psychology degree?" And I was
You
like,
have
"All
a
right, let me."
psychology degree?
Yeah, bachelor's. Yeah,
Yeah, me
I think
too.
most coaches do. Yeah, I think
Me
most
too.
coaches
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, all right, like I don't want to go. A big thing I didn't like about that schooling was I don't want to diagnose people. I don't want to tell people they're wrong, like
Yes.
they're bad. I don't want to say like, oh, you got a problem here, you got to do this. Definitely didn't want to be responsible for any pills or anything, because
Yeah.
there's not anyone I know who's done a pill who feels better.
Uh-huh.
And there's also like 4 more years of doing this, and
Yeah.
that and then and my coach, she I think she had a master's in psychology, something like that. But she was
Mhm.
also a coach. And she was like, well, why don't you also think about coaching?
Yeah.
And that's where I explored that. Again, so by at this point, it was already the pandemic. It
Uh-huh.
was probably March. No, actually, it was probably February or March.
Mhm.
And I was already like, all right, like, what am I going to do? And then I was like, you know what? Let me invest and let me try it out. Let me go all in. I signed up for Tony Robbins Life Coach School. And I put the time in. There were doubts that I had, and I was like, "Oh, is this really that I want to do? Can I really do this?" And then,
Yeah.
like about 6 months later, I was already certified. Um, and then I just started coaching from then on, and it's been literally the thing I've spent 10 years looking for. The thing that
Yeah.
they said that you can't, like, we can't teach you. It's not something you can do. Is like I finally got it. It's just, it honestly is that thing where it's like it doesn't feel like work. It's just it's just me being me, and I'm just getting paid for
Right. You get paid for
it.
being you.
Yeah, it's just an
Mhm.
extension of what have already done. I just learn more, and I'm just always learning, so it's so cool.
Yeah. I have it in my notes to ask you about or to discuss. Something I admire about you so much is the work that you put in, right? So I see you on the coaching calls. We all show up to our coaching calls in our program, but it's so clear how much work you put in to studying and integrating what you learn, right? And so I want to talk to you about what you do, right? What are
Okay.
you doing after the coaching call or after you read the book or right to as we say create yourself, right?
Mm. Um. So what do I? So I guess what's the? Can you clarify the question a little bit more?
Yeah, what are you physically doing in your life? Like are you going over your notes? What do
To be
you
a better
do
coach?
to create yourself? Yeah, after you've been coached or with new things that you've learned, right? To integrate
Yeah.
it into your life. Yeah.
Yeah. So a big thing for me. So I'm surrounded by notebooks. So like like it's funny. There's like I feel like a madman. So I've got like this is a new one that I've got. I'm just journaling in here, like not journaling, but I'm putting in my notes, what I'm
Yeah.
doing. Sometimes what I do, and sometimes like so you and I get coached in a group coach setting. So
Yeah.
sometimes I'm not front and center.
Right.
So sometimes in that time I'm like, all right, like let me just regurgitate, let me just throw up everything that I've learned and put it in order,
Ah,
and let me just go. Again, I learned this from Paul. When like oftentimes we don't need another new thing. Like,
yeah.
have you really mastered that old thing that you just purchased
Right.
or invested in? Like,
Uh-huh.
review it again. That's why, like, to me, I try not to buy too many books,
Yeah.
mostly because I just don't read them, because I'm like, oh man, but I really want to focus this on in this instead. But I'm a big fan of rereading books and
Uh-huh. Rereading a book.
reviewing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So like with JP, he has an awesome, like, in along with our coaching, there's tons of like videos on specific topics that
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
gone into multiple times.
Mhm.
Um, I my goal is to finish all of them by
Me too.
April,
Uh-huh.
and just continue. Like, my plan is to continue coaching with them, but it's like, oh, like I just review the same thing maybe 6 times, and I'm like, all right, that's like 6 hours. And
Yeah.
you review them in the car, like when you're doing groceries, like stuff like this, doing the dishes. But yeah, I take notes, I'm writing down, and then I'm kind of, again, I'm organizing, how does this fit here. So a big thing
Yeah.
that I've been doing this week, or actually probably like the past month, and really it's been connecting this week, so sometimes these things take a little longer to formulate. But it's like, all
Yeah.
right, what is the organization of my sessions? What does the first one look like? What does the second one look like?
Yeah.
And just being very intentional about them. Like, all right, like this is everything that I've learned about it. Like, I've spoken to multiple different coaches about how to do it. So let me just put it in there. And I finally gotten to a place where I'm like, oh, this is how I want to run my first 2 sessions, and
Yeah.
then grow from there.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like I'm a big note taker. I'm
Yeah.
a big fan of putting it in notebooks. I do use Evernote as well.
Oh,
That's where I
cool.
kind of like, that's where like, look, I have 4 notebooks right here,
Uh-huh.
looking at me. So I'm like, okay, let me put them in there so it's more organized, so it's all in one place.
Yeah.
Um, so that's kind of my process. And like to me, I'm in my declarations, I'm committed to being a master coach who coaches powerfully and is getting better and better each and every day.
Yeah, tell us about, I know about declarations, but can you tell us about what you can tell us what yours are and what how declarations help you create yourself and really be who, right, you want to
Yeah.
be. Yeah.
Yeah. So declarations to me is like it's another form of being coached. That's how I've interpreted it. And like coaching, basically, like if you want to go from point A to point, if you're on a highway going from point A to point B,
Yeah.
our emotions, our limiting beliefs and stuff will kind of like get us off track and have us take the wrong exit.
Yeah.
And coaching, it just gets us back on track. Like, hey, let's go back, so we can stay on the road. And
Yeah.
that's just one part of coaching.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to me, declarations really just helps. Like, hey, like just another inch and to stay straight on the path.
Yeah.
So to me, like a few declarations that have stood out to me is like everything I do is transformation. Everything I do is
Um,
for love. I'm still like I still don't quite understand the I am portion of it. So that's something I'm
mm,
still learning. So I don't use that with everything. But I use it to also not only emphasize the things that I want to believe in myself,
mhm.
but also I also add things that I already do believe in myself. So this
Uh-huh.
is a mixture. So it's like I trick my brains like, yeah, like you already believe this, so that must mean the next thing you already believe. Like it's just kind of like
I
an
love that strategy, putting something you definitely already believe in your body,
yeah,
right, next to something that you don't believe yet, but you're creating in yourself, right? Just say it all
exactly.
together, right? Keep the same body as you say all the things.
Exactly.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. And like with Tony Robbins, I was at his event, the UPW, I don't even know, I think it was November or December, and it was like the limiting belief is the lie. Like, what is the lie? So
Yeah.
behind the lie is the truth. So what is it? So I declare the truth. So like a big one for me is like, with my business, I'm afraid of getting rejected.
Uh-huh.
And the truth is everyone that I'm meant to serve is coming to me and everyone else is meant for everyone else because
Right.
we're all meant
Yeah.
to serve. So it's just
Yeah.
ingraining those things and just ingraining the things that I want to believe.
Yeah.
Because like we've been taught and like we know is in order to create the thing that you need to create, who do you need to be to create that?
Yeah.
So
Let's say that again. Who do you need to be, right, to create the thing you want to create? To me, that's what the declarations are all about, right? Saying
yeah,
saying statements that feel powerful, right?
hmm
Over and over and over until you are the person, right, that you
yeah,
need to be to create, yeah, your vision.
yeah. And the key thing is feeling it. You don't just
Uh-huh.
say it because saying it does nothing. And if you don't feel good about it and you say it, you're all you're doing is just adding to that negative association you have with that
Uh-huh.
saying. Um, so I just pray that I've done JP justice with regard to
Don't watch
my
this
de-
GP
my
here.
my
We're not
definition of
explaining it like
declaration.
you do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've been studying. I went to an event that uh in Arizona this past week and heard Steve Hardison speak. And he, is an impactful guy, probably no matter who you are. But I took a couple of, the gold nuggets that I found in his speaking, and I've been studying myself all week. It was about non-judgment, right? And he
Mhm.
takes the word judgment down to the extreme. If you have any story about something, it's a judgment. And I've been it started on the plane, and I took, the most extreme stories about my life that I have that I feel like weren't good, have the story that like this was not good, right? And I've been transforming those into powerful experiences for myself. And so I've spent this entire week studying, I feel like myself, right? You can take one concept, and apply it across the board to every area of your life, And
Mhm.
so, anyway, it was making me think about you and how I have an impression of you that you really
Mhm.
study and integrate really powerfully. And that's kind of the key to shifting in a sustainable way, right? Like we can have a shift in a phone call and it can last 10 minutes, right?
Mhm.
Or we can keep repeating and repeating and going back and going back and going back, right? Until it lives in our body and stays with us and it becomes who we are. So that's something that I
Thank you.
see you do, and it's
Yeah.
amazing.
And this is where I think, again, this is where the spiritual stuff comes in. So for
Uh-huh.
me, like a big, not a big, but like a limiting belief that I have is my ability as a coach. And I'm like, oh, I'm probably not that great of a coach. I still don't know enough, et cetera, et
Right?
cetera. And to
Yeah.
me is like to me it makes sense because I'm focused on everyone who's like I want this person to be there and they're not there, or like it's
Yeah.
just like understand like some people are slow changers, some people are fast changers. There's also two people in the pod, not just one.
Yeah.
And to me, just putting it out there, like, look, this is how I'm a master coach who coaches powerfully and is getting
Yeah.
better and better each and every day. I think that's where God is like, all right, I'm going to send these other people to
Mhm.
affirm it too. It's like
Mm.
you just like thank you for your
Yeah.
kind words and saying them, not just keeping them to yourself.
Yeah.
Because that helps. Matt did the same yesterday. Alexander did the
Mhm.
same yesterday.
Mhm.
Another coach said it to me yesterday morning. Um, and it just and JP said it on the podcast, and he said it in our sessions, and like just a
Yeah.
bunch of people. I'm like, okay, like this is helping break down that limiting belief. So I think just your intention of putting things out there is not just you. It's like it
It creates it in your world, right? It creates it in your
exactly.
world. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
been coached by you before, right? I would recommend you to anybody, right? It's funny how yeah, see other people, right? So clearly, but when it's about ourselves, we're like, I don't
Yeah.
know if I'm any good, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
I kind of have the opposite problem. I say I'm uh, what do I say? Unreasonably confident, but that's my joke because that's
Um,
an impossibility. So do you know about my uh definition of confidence isn't thinking that I'm great. It's knowing that everybody is amazing, right?
mm,
Everybody around me, everyone who's watching the show, everybody in creator circle, everybody everywhere, they're all so amazing. I can see the beauty and the greatness in everybody.
mhm.
So I couldn't be any different, you
Yeah,
know?
I think I have something similar to that,
Yeah.
but it's sometimes you forget. So thank you for
Right.
the
Yes,
reminder.
it's a good reminder, right? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that.
Yeah, so on the same train of thought, what would you say is the piece of wisdom or teaching that you feel like has impacted you the most and expanded you the most?
I think a big one, especially recently, is just this idea of who do you need to be to get what you want.
Mhm.
And it's funny because I didn't realize I actually have this book. I bought it a second time years later.
What
It's
book?
Wallace Waddles is I actually forgot the name. I think The Science of Getting Rich. So, something like
Oh,
that.
cool. Yeah, yeah,
I can
yeah,
see I already forgot. But to me I was reading it and it just clicked. I was like the seed of a fig tree is never gonna make an orange.
yeah,
It's just
yeah,
gonna make a fig tree. It's like the way I think about it, like, yeah, the seed of an apple tree is never gonna make an orange. It's just
yeah,
gonna make apples.
yeah,
So if you continue to show up as an apple seed, you're just gonna continue to make apples.
yeah,
But if you want to make oranges, show up as an orange or as an orange seed and grow that. Like the person who makes $50,000, they have to cease being that, like cease the habits that you have, the thinking that you have, the beliefs that you have, and you have to think as someone who makes 100,000. If that's your goal, what does
yeah,
the person who makes $100,000 think and do?
yeah.
How do they see themselves? Because if you don't believe it and you don't perform in that way, then like two plus two always makes four. It's not
Right,
going to make
right,
five all of a sudden.
right,
So that to me
right.
has
It's not,
been,
yeah. And if we step back like one layer, it's to me the most important belief is that I am not static, right? I think we
Mm.
get stuck in these identities where I am
Oh
X,
yeah.
Y, and Z, right? That's where the declarations come in. Like, no, actually, I can be anything that I decide I am, just about anything, right? And
Yeah.
having, if I've developed these patterns and these beliefs and these understandings based on my experiences so far, those were adapting, right, to the world as I saw it. If I can see the world differently, or if I can dream up a new way to be, then I can, if I adapted to that old stuff, I can adapt to the new stuff too. I can adapt in a new way and be different. And to me, that is so key in personal transformation work, right?
Yeah.
In personal development work. If I can see it in somebody else, I can do it too. And I'm not limited by who I have seen myself as in the past, right?
I love that reminder. And that to me is like, yeah, like that's the key. I know every time that I haven't is because I forgot about that. Or I said like,
Yeah,
you know what? Yeah, but that's not me. Like, no,
right.
this is who I like. It's just like focusing on those limiting beliefs. So it's like just having that reminder, putting yourself in a place where you get those reminders.
Yeah. Yeah, powerful, powerful. Um, I wanted to talk about forgiveness with you, if that's
Hmm.
okay, because you have so powerfully shared with me your story of you and your dad, which has inspired your work, right, with dads and their children. And
Yeah.
so I associate forgiveness with you. And so I didn't even check with you. I don't know if you have like a powerful story about forgiveness, but I'm interested in how you see that playing in, right? To parent-child
Yeah.
relationships or any really relationships.
That's so funny that you mentioned that. 'Cause I don't know if I think I mentioned this in Creator Circle where I've been studying on forgiveness. There's a period of time where I
Okay,
was
so
just
maybe that's
focusing on
why
it.
it was connecting.
Yeah, like
Okay.
I got this woman wrote the forward to Steve Hardison's book, Jan Van Zandt, and this is forgiveness.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Um, so to me, it's like me associating listening with Teresa.
yeah.
Um, so I forgot the question. What is it?
So, yeah, how do you see forgiveness, right? Playing a
Yeah,
role in, it can be relationships in general or
yeah.
father-child
To
relationships.
yeah, the consent like so I've been the biggest kind of movers in this direction of forgiveness has been for me Byron Katie, Brooke Castillo is a huge one from the
Yeah.
life coach school, and Ian Van Zandt, and there's a couple other videos that I've seen too,
Mhm.
but those are the three big ones. The way that I've seen, and the cool thing is they all have a consistent message. And forgiveness, what I've seen, like again, it sounds cheesy, so I will say I'll start off differently.
Okay.
So apologizing to someone
Mhm.
is not. So let's say I hurt you.
Yeah. And I'm
Apologize.
mad, Andres.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Apologizing is not for you.
Uh-huh.
My
Okay.
apology is not meant to serve you. It's meant for me.
Mm.
Because me, as the person who hurt you, I need to accept and take ownership of that. Because the person who doesn't
Oh,
apologize shows a lack of maturity. Like a person who does apologize, they show the sign of maturity. They show that
yeah.
they can own what they do, and then they can grow from there. But
Yeah.
me apologizing is not for you; it's for
Yeah.
me.
Okay.
Now, forgiveness. What do you define forgiveness as?
I guess I experience forgiveness um as a letting go of blame, right? A letting go of uh
Perfect.
yeah, the anger
That's
or whatever. I guess it could be
yeah,
different emotions, but it's the letting go of blame. Yeah.
exactly. Now,
Mhm.
forgiveness. Just if we're gonna again, let's say you're the one who's forgiving.
Yeah.
You forgiving has nothing to do with me.
Mhm.
It has everything to do for you because the only reason to forgive is if you're holding on to any anger or resentment, or
Yeah.
in this case, like any bitterness, which is probably resentment.
Same. Yeah.
That's the only reason. And what clicked in me, which was so cool, and this is what also led me to it, was we can forgive the other person without them even being here, knowing, even being alive.
Yeah.
That's the key. That's the key factor of forgiveness. Because one thing that I was studying about this, like again with dads, like
Mhm.
if I'm um if my dad left, like my dad left and this is how I feel about him, like, and then he died, like there's no closure there. Well, there can
Yeah.
be closure because you can forgive him because it's all about you letting go of anger, letting go of resentment. Has not the other person doesn't need to know. And the cool thing, this I want to say this too, because some people get confused. I was illustrating this to my wife's friend the other day, is that just because you forgive someone doesn't mean you have to change the relationship. Doesn't
Right.
mean that they are now in your life. Doesn't mean that it's okay for them. Doesn't mean you have to be in a perpetual cycle of just being angry and then forgiving, being like, then
Yeah.
you choose what happens after that. Because
Yeah.
again, forgiveness is not about integrating them back into your life.
Right.
Forgiveness is not about um, them feeling better. So she said, so this friend, she was like, I feel like if I'm forgiving someone, I'm letting them off the hook.
Yeah.
Well, you're not, because on the other side of forgiveness is that person. So if you're forgiving me,
Yeah.
I have no idea how you actually feel because I'm not
Right.
in you. I'm not thinking you. I'm not Heather.
Yeah.
All I can do, the closest thing I can do is put myself in your shoes. And also
Mhm.
I'm just perceiving what you're showing. So for me with my
Yeah.
dad, like there was a lot of anger and resentment that I had, but I never really showcased it. I'll
Right.
just I'll just be nonchalant. I wouldn't hold a conversation. There were times where I was just like, "Oh yeah, I'm busy, but I just didn't want to talk."
Right.
That's
Right.
how I showed it.
Yeah.
So like in his eyes, like I probably didn't seem that like there was probably something going on. Like he was like, "This guy's not super angry or anything."
Right. Right.
And even when I see him, like, yeah, I love him. I love my dad. I've loved my dad the whole time. It's like all the other person can see is what you're showing. So you're not letting anyone off the hook. If anything, you're just letting go of that anger.
Yeah.
Because
It's about preserving your own peace, right? It's about getting back
yeah,
to peace in your own body. And
yeah,
part of that peace is definitely if someone has behaved in ways that you don't want to have in your life, is not, participating in with them in ways that you have participated before, relating with them in those ways, right? So I love
exactly.
how you've made the distinction because I think it's so important to be free to forgive, right? To
Yeah.
to get yourself back to peace and not
Mhm.
be holding on to what that means for somebody else if you do that.
Yeah. Like if we were to use a metaphor like that anger or that resentment that you hold, it's an anchor keeping your ship from moving forward. Like you
Yeah,
want to be moving forward, but you're just stuck there.
yeah,
And like over time, you're just getting older and you're still there.
yeah.
Like any one of us can go back to any memory and it feels like it's just happening right there. And here's the other cool thing about forgiveness too, that just came about when as we were talking is like you have probably experienced this because you're a human being. I know I've experienced this.
I am
But have
human.
you ever been forgiven, but you still feel bad?
Of course, of
Because
course.
now you have to forgive yourself.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
again, this has nothing to do with the other person.
Right.
It's like again, I was talking to a friend of ours yesterday and he was like, yeah, like I apologize in this, and they're like, to be honest, like I haven't, you were never the problem. I never
Mhm.
thought of this. And like I don't even know, 40, 50 years later, still feels that way.
Yeah.
I still feel bad. I was like, okay, but like, I mean, I didn't say this because this wasn't part of the conversation, but it's like
Listen.
if I were to say now, it's like it's practicing that forgiveness. And again, it's for self-forgiveness is also the form of apology. It's for yourself too.
Wow, yeah. Yeah, what kept coming to mind was Steve Hardison. I don't know if he is the first one that said this, but we don't experience other people or objects. We just experience our thoughts of them,
Hmm.
right? So my forgiveness, right, is for my experience because I am only actually in relationship with myself, right?
Hmm.
Because even the things other people do, I'm interpreting, right? It comes through my interpretation. And so I love how you have the apology, is
Yeah.
for the person and forgiveness is for the other person, and their relationship is a whole different thing to build, right?
Yeah. See, now you're seeing it live in action. I'm taking note on something you just said.
See what
Uh,
it does?
like forgiving ourselves.
Yeah.
So I love that. Um, yeah, I'm just
Yeah,
writing that.
the forgiving ourselves, I think of, I do most often when I'm dropping judgments, right? That's and maybe it's all judgment. All the story is judgment, right? But I love the practice of forgiving myself for treating myself in a way that didn't serve me, right? Whether having a story that didn't serve me or interpreting, things that happen in the world out there in a way that
Mhm.
creates other people or myself as not in our power, right? And this is something we think sometimes forgiveness, we think of it as like someone's got to do something really bad and then it's this big thing and then, I forgive and for me it's a practice just like gratitude is, right? It's just
Mhm.
integrated into my life. Any single time I feel shame. I find that I have an intention to avoid using shame as a weapon against myself, right? Because it's not useful. And so I apologize to myself and forgive myself. I try to do it every single time I feel a little bit of self-doubt or shame come up. So I love the idea of forgiveness as just an ongoing practice in life. It doesn't have to wait for the big things, right?
Yeah, it's with anything. Even life coaching, if you think about it, like we're kind of getting a free pass of like not a free pass, but we're getting paid to also grow ourselves. Like
Yeah.
my favorite thing about coaching is like I can kind of use the session to go through my stuff. Like I'm just eloquating it. Like, yeah, I'm using it as an example, but I'm eloquating it to them in a way that serves them, and
Mhm.
inadvertently it serves me.
Yeah.
And like the coaching, this is why I think coaching is just an essential, like I think it's a skill for everyone to develop,
Yeah.
like to hone in on, because like with anything, you just get better and better at it. That self-reflection, that forgiveness that you do. Forgiveness is just a skill.
Yeah.
So many of us, it's hard for us to forgive because we've never really done it. We've
Yeah.
never really been taught to do it. And also we're dealing, like some of us are just dealing with these huge feelings that we have to these meanings and these events that
Right.
happen.
Right.
And it's like, okay, like it's like I'm trying to like chip at mount, like I'm trying to chip at the Himalayas. Like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
not coming down.
No, I think forgiveness for me so often gives me a fresh start, right? I get to begin again and
Yeah.
I get to have collected the data, right, from whatever happened, right? But then forgiveness kind of erases the the shame around it and I get to start over again. And goodness, I love a fresh start, right? Isn't that
Yeah.
such a wonderful gift we can give ourselves and others? I talk about seeing everyone in your life with a beginner's mind every time my child walks in the room, right? Can I appreciate them like it's the first time we're meeting? Uh,
Yeah.
and
Well, it's funny. I interviewed a dad today who's a
uh-huh.
police officer,
Mhm.
and he has an enormous like sense of presence because every time he leaves the door, like he's leaving with a bulletproof vest on. And it's like
Wow,
that, like that's a huge
powerful.
reminder that, I may not come home. So let me
Yes.
really tell them how much I care about them. And he's like, yeah, like I'm a human. Some days it's a little rushed. Some days it's not like
Yeah.
not as grateful. But that practice of presence is just so he's got a huge reminder of why that's important.
Yeah.
And I think for us is just those little practices, getting better. Like let's not try and chip away at a mountain. Let's see if we
Yeah.
can, chip away at a accumulation of dirt and then build off from there and just
Right.
get better and just tackle these little things, um, and just go from there.
Yeah, so I love forgiveness in the frame of parent-child relationships. Um and it's been such a gift for me to get more practice at forgiveness with my relationship with my parents, right? And then
Mhm.
also with my relationship with my children. Me and my children act in ways that I wouldn't design if I was going to use a paintbrush and paint our life, right? In some beautiful way. Like we're human. Like my kids are throwing tantrums every single day, and I, speak to them sharply or whatever, right? In on a daily basis. And I can see how us having forgiveness as, a main tool in our tool belt when we're relating to each other is what's going to help us keep growing instead of kind of just tolerating and suffering, right? Through our interactions. And that's something we can build, right? As parents, um,
Hmm.
to so that it's in our children and they can grow, right? With forgiveness in their tool belt. I love that you called it a
Yeah.
skill. Yeah.
Yeah. And what a gift would it be? Again, I got this from Coach Carter, the
Okay.
movie, but it's that famous poem that Nelson Mandela recited. I
Mhm.
forgot the original author of that poem, but in there is basically like let your light shine because you give other people permission to do the same.
Yeah.
Us practicing forgiveness, us practicing self-forgiveness,
Yeah.
especially for young kids, even
Mhm.
older kids. Like everyone, we still look at our parents sometimes in those eyes of like we're this little kid.
Yeah.
Um, is like I see you doing it, so that means I can do it too.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Exactly. And you know, this brings me back to the coaching relationship. So that's so true for our kids, but isn't that true for the coaching in a coaching relationship too? Like I look at whoever's coaching me, right?
Mm.
And as they practice these things, that helps me have access to it in my life as well, right? So whether it's self-love, self-forgiveness, self-belief, right? All these things that they're actually the things that are in the way, like not having them, right? To me, that's what's in the way of not creating, right? The world that we want to live in, the reality that we want to operate in, the actual material things we want in our lives. And so that's, to me, coaching um, is an opportunity for me, self-coaching and being coached and coaching others. It's an opportunity for me to reparent myself, right?
Mm.
In a way that I crave, right? Like whatever it is that I've craved from a parent outside of me, like I can learn the skills to have it because they live in me now, right? I can give that to
Yeah.
myself. Yeah. And
There's a cool thing I would love to, it's on my list to study, and it's this idea of like generational um like things that are passed on from our
Mhm.
ancestors.
Yeah.
And I think like to me, and it's different from like generational trauma. Like I think, like I don't know. I feel like I'm one of these. I feel like an old person now, where I'm like, oh, like why are you like just call it what it is? Like why are you making new names?
Why?
Like it's just like yeah, like
Sell
it's
more
just
books,
like
dude. Yeah.
yeah, like to me it's like oh, like this is my generation doesn't talk. I'm like I sound so old. Um,
Mhm.
but like to me it's like because I had a therapist 7 years ago, and I've continued to stay in touch with her, and it's just so cool to like think about like our great great grandparents. Like there's stuff
Yes.
that they dealt with and like wisdom that they have
Yeah.
that's been passed on just through our genes,
Uh-huh.
and like we
Yeah, yeah.
have access to that wisdom
Yeah.
because like yeah, it's not just the physical. There
Yeah.
is an element of the spiritual and just like
Yeah.
the emotional and just like it's a part of us. I don't think our DNA is simply just to spit out another physical being. I think it's like that's why we can also pick up like oh like you tend to have like these tendencies of your dad or your mom, which to
Yeah.
me is so weird because my
I
dad, I didn't have like
You
him and
weren't
my mom
around.
split at
Yeah.
him and my mom split at 3 years old, and then
Mhm.
like my mom was like you're just like your dad. I'm like how
Mhm.
so it's like there's got to be more to it. I'm so excited to dive deeper into that subject,
Yeah.
because it's just so it's like just the idea like it just feels like science fiction.
I know. Well, if there is generational trauma that is passed down, I completely agree. There is generational wisdom that is passed down, right? And I like to say that when I'm coaching or when having discussions with people, and we're exploring different topics, that all I'm doing is reminding, right? I'm reminding you of what you already know inside that maybe you haven't had access to for a while, or maybe you've had other beliefs that have been kind of blocking that wisdom. Because, I've said we probably mention it in every single call, but the key to all personal development and coaching and is that the answers are inside of us. My answers are not inside of you, and your answers are not inside of me, right?
Mm.
I can't give you your answers, but by creating some friction between us, right? By interacting, we can be a stand for each other finding our own answers.
Yeah, it's like this, but like everything we have is right in here,
Yeah.
but but we're the ones who put this lock on it. So that's why
Mhm.
we go to coaches. That's why we go to therapists, and like that's why we go for these books and like this help to
Yeah.
find out like, oh, how do I unlock it? And I know one misconception that I had was like, all right, I need more books because like this is locked. I
Right.
can't
More
access this.
information. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like we don't need more information. Just
Yeah.
learn how to open your book and read it.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Learn how to open your book and read it, right? Read the signs in your body. Notice your thoughts,
Yeah,
right?
and
These
give
are
it
like,
like honor it. Like don't judge it. Don't be like what like I shouldn't be like
yeah.
just you feel it. There's no right or wrong. Like yeah, society says like you shouldn't feel this way about this thing. Well, you do.
Well, you
So
do.
just feel it
You're
because you keep
real, right?
repressing it. You keep repressing it. It's never going to get addressed, and you won't create the thing that you want, which is probably the opposite. But you have
Yeah,
to
I think
look at it.
the basis of self-love for me is acknowledging that I am real, right? I am just as part of the earth as the trees and the foxes and the grass, and right, that's all real, and I'm real, and I'm just the earth, the universe expressing itself, right? So when I see things come up through me, right, that's just as real. Whatever's growing through me is just as real as the grass growing. And to really honor that, right, and accept that is the basis of self-love and authentic self-expression, right?
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
it's like even think like again, this is just me thinking that there's a possibility. But someone
Yeah.
like who's hesitant to do that is like I'm hesitant to like accept that. I don't want to accept that
Yeah.
part of me. It's like
Yeah.
again, if I'm a dad who left his kids and
Mhm.
left the mother of his kids and like haven't seen them in a couple of years, and I
Yeah.
feel guilty and shameful about that, and I want to see them.
Yeah.
Is like all right, first own it. Like yes,
Yeah.
that is what I did. I left,
There it is. Yeah.
and also but honor the reasons why you left and not honor in the sense like oh it's a good thing.
Mhm.
Like at the end of the day you did it for a reason. Like I just wasn't ready as a dad. I
Yeah.
wanted to be 18. I wanted to be young. I
Yeah.
wanted to have my fun. I didn't like this girl. Like this is
Yeah.
not what I signed up for. This is too much. Like
Yeah.
okay, I felt that way. It's okay to
Right.
feel that way. There's so many parents who have felt the same way. They just had a different decision. So just
Yeah.
feel what you're feeling,
Yeah.
accept it and own it. That's you apologizing, forgive yourself for it.
Yeah.
And then now you have the opportunity to build off of that. What do you want to do next?
Yeah. You have to know where you are, right? Really be settled into where you are, right?
Yeah.
Before you can make a plan to go where you want to go. How would you
Yeah.
even know what to do? Yeah.
Yeah. The scary things I would assume is like, does that mean that's who I am?
Right.
And I think it's just these labels like, yeah, like I must be a horrible person because I left my kid for this reason. It's like,
Mhm.
no, you just left. Yeah.
Yeah.
It sucks that you left.
Yeah.
And who knows if maybe that was even better for them, but you
Well,
left.
yeah, it's like the dropping the judgment of the past, coming to the present and saying, what do I
Yeah.
want now? Who am I going to
Like
be
the
now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the consequences are there. You can face them, you can own them. It's never too late. But we don't have to, put rose tinted glasses on a pile of poop. Like it's like you still did it. like just admit it, accept the
Yeah.
reasons why you did it, and move forward from there. I think there's just such a fear of just admitting it
Yeah.
because there's just so much pressure of like, oh man, if I admit that, mean like who's gonna? There's so many people who we don't even know that they've left other people because it's just so
Well,
shameful to talk about.
this
Rightfully so, like not rightfully so, but understandable.
this brings back uh, us back around to forgiveness, and there is no problem bigger than we are, right? There is no problem that is unfigure outable. If you're willing to face, all the parts of it and apply yourself, right, to creating what's next and what you really desire, then I believe we can figure any of that out, right?
Yeah, I think
Hmm.
I don't think there's any coach out there who doesn't love people. Like to
Yeah.
me, I love people not just because of who they are, but simply because they're people. Like, and when you think about, like, when I think about people, I think like, look at all the remarkable
Mm,
achievements that we have. Like, look, you
yeah.
and I are talking. I don't even know how you can hear me. I
I
don't
don't
even know how
know.
you can
Yeah,
see me.
it's
I don't even know
amazing.
how, like, it's like, how are we recording this? It's literally being frozen in time. And
Yeah.
then you can see it again in the future. I could
Later,
see
I
this
don't know.
video hopefully hundreds of years, like tens of hundreds of years, whatever, later. But it's like it's frozen in time. Like
Yeah.
someone made this.
People are
Like
amazing, right?
like there's a giant metal thing flying through the air. Like how's
Right,
that
helping
even
us talk
possible?
right now.
Yeah, there's satellites that allow us to just text.
Yeah.
Like that's just so bonkers. It's just crazy. But like to me, it's like then at the same time, it's like look at what this look at the examples of all the incredible things people have done in the world,
Yeah.
all the amount of the huge amounts of selflessness, the huge
Yeah.
amounts of care,
Yeah.
just showing up for people. I was like, look at what we've all been capable of doing. It's exactly what you said. Like we're all so remarkable. Like
Yeah.
like I'm a great coach because
Yeah.
I'm remarkable because human beings are just remarkable.
Yes. Oh my gosh. My greatest joy, I think, of coaching is to be able to look at somebody and tell them all the greatness that I see in them.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone has a magnificence, you and I included, that we can't even imagine, right? We have a potential to help and to love and to influence and to serve, right? That
Mm,
we can't wrap our minds around. But
yeah.
but working with a coach for me is taking a step just to like look out the window at that, just like, oh, I'm gonna peek, right? I'm gonna look, and then a little more, and a little more. I'm gonna step into it. I'm gonna step into it, and I believe whatever dreams we have, right? Whatever is coming up in us, that's what's next for the world, right? And so I feel like, who am I to say no to that, right? Who am
Exactly.
I to not work on getting all my stuff out of the way so that I can bring that into reality and help other. So that's what we do, right? Is we help other people.
Yeah, and because we're capable of so much, that's why I believe, as you mentioned, there's nothing we can't overcome. There's
Yeah.
nothing we can't figure out.
Yeah.
Like sometimes the storm feels very long. Well,
Yeah.
you're still
All right.
here,
Right.
so that means you can still continue to weather it. Eventually it's going to go away.
No storm lasts forever, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Nothing does, right? Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Well, oh my gosh, what an awesome conversation, Andres. Look
Yeah,
what we
thank you.
did.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, it was so fun to talk with you. If you want to send me um links to your information, I'm happy to put them below so
Yeah,
people can learn more about you. And yeah, thanks so much. I feel like we covered so many amazing topics. You are a wealth of wisdom, and yeah, your light shines bright. Thanks for shining it here.
real recognizes real. And thank you so much for the opportunity because I love I've taken some notes and just like what I've gotten out of this. And I think if you're listening to Heather in this space, it's like there's just so much to learn
Mhm.
and get from. So I'm really excited for what you're creating here because it's who knows what's going to come out of it for someone else.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, if it could help one person, that would be dream come true. Check.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thanks so much, Andres.
You got it.